The sun had long disappeared behind the skyline, leaving the city streets cloaked in shadows and an uneasy chill. Streetlights flickered on, casting pale, wavering beams over cracked sidewalks and abandoned corners. In a small, worn-down apartment at the edge of town, a woman named Clara sat quietly on a threadbare sofa. Her hands, once steady and confident, trembled as they clutched a faded photograph of her late husband. It had been 5 years since his sudden death, a loss that had upended her entire life, leaving her alone to care for their children. Memories flooded her mind. Family dinners filled with laughter, the warm scent of home-cooked meals, and the gentle hum of her children's voices at bedtime. But those days were gone, fading like a distant dream she could never touch again. Her eldest son, Michael, had grown distant and impatient. "You've failed us, Mom," he had said. "You can't manage this life on your own." Her younger daughter, Emily, had quietly started to echo her brother's sentiments, convinced their mother could no longer provide the care and guidance they needed. One cold morning, Clara awoke to find a note slipped under her door. Her children had gone, left without a word. The note read simply, "We can't live like this anymore. Find your own way." Heartbroken and hollow, Clara gathered the few belongings she could carry and stepped into the gray morning. The city moved around her, indifferent. Neighbors hurried past, eyes glued to their routines, ignoring the woman who had once had a family, a home, and a life brimming with love. Weeks passed in a blur. Clara wandered through the city, seeking shelter wherever she could. Public libraries, small cafes, church halls, and quiet corners of parks. Every door she knocked on seemed to close a little harder, every face she passed a little colder. Hunger gnawed at her, and exhaustion weighed heavy on her frame. One afternoon, she found herself on a park bench, shoulders slumped, face buried in her hands. Tears streamed silently, catching the late afternoon light. It was then that she noticed him. A man, seated a few feet away, sketching quietly in a notebook. He looked ordinary at first glance, blending into the city's chaotic rhythm. But something in his gaze, a gentle, unassuming concern, made her lift her head. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, his voice calm and sincere. Clara could only shake her head, words failing her. The man, whose name was David, simply nodded. He reached into his backpack, pulling out a small bottle of water and a neatly wrapped sandwich, placing them beside her. "I know it's not much," he said, "but it might help." Clara accepted the gift with a trembling hand, tears threatening to spill anew. It had been so long since anyone had shown her such simple kindness. The world, she thought, had seemed cruel, indifferent, and unfeeling. Over the following weeks, David continued to check on her. Small acts of kindness, food, advice, or simply a patient ear, became her lifeline. Gradually, she shared more of her story, her husband's death, her children's abandonment, the bleakness that had engulfed her life. David listened without judgment, offering support in ways that were gentle yet steadfast. One evening, as the city lights began to twinkle against the darkening sky, David invited Clara to a gathering at his community center. Hesitant, she agreed, unsure of what awaited her. Upon arrival, she saw a diverse group of people: homeless individuals, struggling parents, young people with nowhere to turn, yet all were met with compassion and acceptance. For the first time in years, Clara felt truly seen. It was there, amid the warmth of shared humanity, that a volunteer handed her a legal document. "Do you know this?" the volunteer asked. Clara's hands shook as she read. Her late husband had left a substantial inheritance. Somehow, due to legal oversight and her children's neglect, the property and assets remained under her name. Shock and disbelief mixed with a glimmer of hope, flooding her heart with cautious optimism. The months that followed were transformative. Clara moved into a modest apartment arranged through the community center, began managing her finances carefully, and slowly rebuilt her confidence. Yet the sting of her children's rejection lingered like a shadow, a wound that time could not immediately heal. Then, one quiet morning, a letter arrived from Michael. His words were tentative but sincere: apologies for misunderstanding, acknowledgement of his mother's struggles, and an expression of longing. Emily's note was similar, heartfelt and reflective. Clara felt a storm of emotions: hurt, hesitation, but also enduring love. She chose forgiveness, recognizing that resentment would only tether her to the pain of the past. The reunion was quiet but profound. Tears were shed, whispers of apology exchanged, and embraces held tightly. Her children, seeing the depth of her resilience, were humbled. Clara, once abandoned and alone, now stood surrounded by her family, stronger and wiser than she had ever been. Through every lonely night and tearful dawn, Clara had survived, not by wealth or fame, but through the small kindness of strangers, the inner strength she had discovered, and the unwavering bond of a mother's love. David, who had first offered her a sandwich and water, watched from afar, smiling quietly. His simple gesture had sparked hope, proving that even the smallest acts of compassion could alter lives. Soon, Clara's story spread throughout the community. People shared it online, in cafes, and among friends. It became a testament to the enduring power of kindness, forgiveness, and hope. It reminded everyone that even in the harshest circumstances, no one is ever truly forgotten. Clara's life, once marked by despair and abandonment, now shimmered with light, laughter, and the knowledge that goodness still existed in the world. She understood that a single act of empathy, a simple touch of care, could shift the course of destiny. And so, in the city that had once seemed indifferent and cold, Clara's story became a beacon. It was a story of loss transformed into resilience, sorrow transformed into hope, and loneliness transformed into connection. Through her journey, the world learned that the human heart, when met with compassion and courage, could heal, rebuild, and shine brighter than ever. No longer simply surviving, Clara was living, fully, boldly, and with a heart wide open. She had discovered that even in the depths of despair, a spark of kindness could illuminate the path forward, and that love, forgiveness, and hope were the truest forms of wealth one could ever possess.